so that the bristles hit the canvas at an angle. Okay, now that I have my horizon, now that I have my sky in place, I can start filling in the details and the placement of the things that are in front of both the sky and the horizon. In this case, we have a back tree line followed by foreground tree lines. So just to give an estimate for myself and good placement of where I'm going to put this tree here, which is behind the main tree, and those trees, I'm going to take that by using just a single line, and I'm going to follow the contour very lightly with a pencil of where those trees are. I'm not sure if you can see this on the canvas or not, but I've just now traced the outline of the back row of trees back here to see where everything is going to be. And on top of this, I can now start painting those background trees because these will all be in front of it. So I'll start with using a round china brush. In this case, it's a 1/4 inch round china brush. One of my favorite brushes to use of all time. And I'll start mixing the colors from the palette I had previous. Because in these trees, there's a lot of orange and a lot of red and a lot of brown. So in addition to what I have here that made the sky, I'm going to incorporate a burnt umber into this mix. Again, we prime the brush by just dipping into the water. Use the sink to knock off the excess. And we just start looking, where are those details going to be? So in this case, I'm going to start in the middle of the canvas, mixing fire orange, burnt umber together, followed by a pumpkin orange for a softener. And in this puddle is going to be where I start painting in the leaves. And if you look really closely, those trees, we know they're trees, but how they're identified is by splotches of paint in this case. So using this round brush is a great tip. I'm just going to start going and looking at the tree line and just start tapping in. And you don't have to make them even, but just start tapping in those colors that you see in the picture here. And as I'm doing this, I'm covering over the line that I drew in there so it doesn't look so cartoony. The goal is to make this as realistic as possible. So the reason I started in the middle here is because where the sun is shining brightest is going to be where the most orange concentration is going to be. So aside from here, when I finish this tree, I'm going to start adding darker colors as it goes away from that immediate sunlight on both sides of the sun. In this case over here, you see that the leaves are near black. As they transition closer to the sun, they become more orange. And vice versa on the opposite side. And so where the sun is shining brightest, I'm not only going to use the orange that I mixed up here, but I can also grab a brighter orange, a lighter yellow orange to mix in here as well. Because when you look closely, there's both splotches of lighter orange versus dark orange in the same tree. What that is a distance between the ones that are lightest are further away from the viewer in the tree. The ones that are closest are darker. So we can just mix and match those anywhere we want to in here. And you're going to do it in a very non-uniform style. So randomly I'm grabbing different colors and putting them in any old place. And when the painting is done, this is again the goal, is to achieve ultra realism. Most of this center tree right here that I'm working on is this tree right here. And as you can see, there's going to be foreground trees covering the majority of this. So what I don't do is waste and spend so much time focused on this when I know that there's going to be 3 main trunks covering the majority of this anyway. So what is still exposed between the trees here is what we want to focus on the most. We won't know that until after I take my pencil and draw in where those trees are going to be. Then we can focus on making those sections as realistic as possible. But for now, we're looking for a color transition from light to dark on both sides of the sun. Again, as it goes further away from the sun, it becomes more silhouetted in black. Over here, where the sun is shining, it actually looks like it's burning the tree because of the orange and yellow colors in here. So I'll just continue to spread that out. And the further I get away from this center here, again, I'll start dabbing into darker colors. In this case, a burnt umber mixed with fire orange. And we'll start tapping in where those are going to go. And again, a very non-uniform style. So a good trick that I've learned to get both light and dark using the same brush without having to change brushes is to go into the lightest color that you're going to use and just pull it on one side. On the other side that doesn't have the orange, we're going to put it into a darker color and just pull that color out. Now, when you put on the canvas, you have the best of both worlds. You have both light and dark. So we can apply that technique to the trees because they require both light and dark. It just kind of saves you time. If it looks like I'm painting fast, I'm not really painting fast. It is more of just how you take the paint off the bristles. Again, I just tap it fast. It almost looks like a woodpecker when I do it sometimes. But I've developed this technique to kind of speed the process up. You don't really have to have the hand speed. I'm hoping to give you some really quick tips on how to achieve what I do to make the best of a painting, to make it as realistic as possible. Again, I'm going darker as I go away from that sun. So I'm starting to get away from these brighter oranges. This is what is called secondary detail. Or in this case, we're just going to rough it because only one more application would make the primary. So again, I'm grabbing some more dark. And sometimes you can use colors that you wouldn't think would go into the glow of a sunset or a sunrise. In this case, I can even grab some blue that I used up here in the sky, and I can mix that with the brown, and no one's going to know any difference. It's just going to be a darker color. So the same applies for the opposite side of the sun. As I pull away from the sun, it becomes darker, except for over here, it's going to be much darker than here because the sun is off-centered. So we'll just continue. Again, we'll start grabbing the lighter colors closer to the sun. It doesn't matter if you make a mistake, right? You can just paint over it anyway, it just doesn't matter. One thing I'm doing is how I apply the paint is I angle my brush so that the bristles hit the canvas at an angle. So every time I go in like this, the bristles will make that soft edge up here. You don't ever want to jam your brush straight into the canvas like this because it's too much paint and it just doesn't look good. So, and I can cover over this, it's not a big deal. But just to show the technique, always use the brush at an angle when you come to softer shapes on your canvas. Here we go for some dark. In this case I'm using 2 palettes because this is has the midnight blue that I'll be mixing with all this to kind of transition that dark. What you can do is you can also skip to the end and go over on this side and work, knowing that that's dark just like these trees here. So just to break up the monotony of working in a concentrated area, sometimes it helps just to kind of see what the rest of your painting is going to look like. When I first started watching my dad paint trees, I noticed that when he finished a tree, it was left in this state. Well, I always wanted to take things a little bit further than that and show more true detail. So I eventually started doing individual leaves, and I even developed a technique for that. In this case, they're too small to show individual leaves. They're too far away to show that. So I'm going to retain what my dad taught me how to paint trees, and we're going to leave it at this for now. Even the rough detail sometimes takes a bit of patience to do. You never want, if you're achieving photorealism or hyperrealism, you never really want to rush your paint job. You really want to think about what makes that painting a good painting. Is it balanced? Is it colored right? And it's something that you don't just do overnight. My paintings typically take 4 to 5 days to do, depending on how much detail is. Some paintings take up to 30 days. It just depends on how much focus and concentration, and a lot of it depends on the subject matter. In this case, this is a natural setting. So in nature, as we know, nature almost never repeats itself perfectly. So you have the freedom to just look at it and rough it in. And we're going to try to get as close to this as we can today. And we're just going to start looking at the picture where these trees are in relationship to where the sun is.